WrestleMania is the Super Bowl of WWE. It is the time of the year where WWE attempts to put on their best matches because the entire world is watching. Sometimes they get it right, other times it is a disaster. Today I'm going to focus on the positive though and share my top 10 favorite WrestleMania matches of all time. Originally, I was going to talk about the objective 10 best matches, but I thought it'd be more fun to explain my personal favorites because a bunch of lists out there exist of people saying the exact same matches. So anyways, these matches on my list may seem random, but they have an impact in my life, and everyone also has a different perspective, and wrestling is subjective. So you know what, if you don't agree with my opinion, it's alright, just let me know yours in the comments below. Anyways, I do have two honorable mentions on the list. The first one is the match that I absolutely loved, and if you are a fan of the channel, you would know it is John Cena versus The Fiend from WrestleMania 36, and I only put this as an honorable mention just because a lot of people don't consider it a match, while some do. I think it's a match, but because of the pandemic, the match did not happen in a ring in traditional fashion. John Cena and The Fiend had the first and only ever Firefly Funhouse match. It was brilliant work by the writers and both men. As wacky as it was top-notch storytelling. Seeing the history of John Cena's career unfold and the effect that it had on Bray Wyatt was genius writing. Like, you could not have made that any better. I've watched the match a dozen times and I will continue to do so in the future. Anyways, the other match that makes the honorable mention is Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan. Kofi winning the big one at the grandest stage of them all was iconic. I'll never forget the moment, and it was definitely the best match of WrestleMania 35. Number 10, Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. WrestleMania 32 was one of the worst manias ever. It felt completely lackluster due to some serious injuries. John Cena, Randy Orton, and Seth Rollins all could not compete in matches because of the injuries they sustained. Roman Reigns versus Triple H was kinda boring. Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker had one good spot. AJ Styles even lost his first Mania match, and then you had Brock Lesnar versus Dean Ambrose, which was just ass. In such an underwhelming WrestleMania card, there was a gem of a match that changed the landscape of the women's division. Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair all came into the show and over-delivered, putting on the best match of the night. This was at a time when women never really had enough time to even have a decent match, let alone be the best match. However, these three ladies got the job done. This is the match that had me hooked, and I've been a fan of each of them ever since. I'd even say that this WrestleMania match really put the women's revolution on the map. Without it, who knows where they would be. The only complaint that I have about this match is the wrong person won. Sasha Banks should have been victorious, and I'll say that forever. Number 9, John Cena versus The Rock. You can make the argument and say that John Cena versus The Rock might very well be the biggest match in WWE history. The Rock coming back after becoming a huge Hollywood star to feud with the biggest WWE wrestler at the time was monumental stuff. The match was booked a year in advance and people were excited, including myself. John Cena and The Rock did an excellent job at making people care about this bout. The promos were on point. They were literally destroying each other every time they had the chance. When the match took place, there was a sense of importance. It had the big fight feel to it. The match quality is really good stuff too. A lot of people overlook it, but I recently rewatched it and I enjoyed it. This match is on my list because it's my version of Austin versus Rock. The only thing that I didn't like was the fact that they had a rematch the next year. That really made this once-in-a-lifetime match feel a little less prestigious, but it doesn't take away from the build-up, the hype, and the match itself. There's a reason why this had the most pay-per-view buys in any wrestling event. Number 8, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. WrestleMania 31 featured a main event match that was really great. Roman Reigns was taking on Brock Lesnar for the WWE title. This is the first time these two wrestled, and it might be their best match ever. They haven't topped it since. That could change next week, but we will have to wait and see. I kind of feel like it might. Anyways, Lesnar and Reigns were legitimately beating the crap out of each other in this one. The brawl was so intense, and it was very difficult to tell what was a shoot or what wasn't. What made the match even better was Seth Rollins cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase to pull off the Century of the Heist. This is easily a classic. I'm excited to see if Reigns and Lesnar can top it. Number 7, Triple H versus The Undertaker. Triple H and Undertaker have had an ongoing feud for over 20 years. The two started beefing in the early days of the Attitude Era, and the last time they fought was in Saudi Arabia a few years ago. In those 2 decades, I think their best match ever was the Hell in a Cell bout at WrestleMania 28. Everything about it was so good. Undertaker showing that he shaved his head was a cool spot for some reason. Shawn Michaels being the special guest referee added an element of drama to the story. The sweet chin music and pedigree combo had me fooled. Like, I literally thought the streak was over right there. In the end, The Undertaker won the brutal contest, maintaining his streak, and I love the image of these 3 men holding each other, taking one last look at the crowd, pretending like they were actually retiring. Like, God knows they fooled me. Number 6, CM Punk versus Undertaker. CM Punk challenging Undertaker for his WrestleMania streak seemed like an odd pairing. For some reason, I just did not think these two were going to click in that ring, but I was totally wrong. CM Punk and Undertaker absolutely killed it. The story going in the match was strong as well. Then you had Taker's entrance, which was fire, and CM Punk even had a live performance of his theme song. That right there is how you know this was going to go crazy. The match had all the right emotions and storytelling to it. CM Punk almost died after hitting an elbow drop onto the announcer's table without it breaking. Undertaker eventually won the match, and then he retrieved Paul Bearer's urn. This was the only good WrestleMania 29 match. I personally think that it should have been for the WWE Championship in the main event slot, because everything else on that show was kind of pointless. However, this match is still great, and it's one of my favorites. Number 5, Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks defended her SmackDown Women's Championship against Bianca Belair at WrestleMania 37 last year. Forget the story of the match, it wasn't great. We all know that. The two were just tag teaming for a bit and then they had their match. Despite not having the best build-up, these two ladies killed it in the ring so much that it is still one of my favorite WrestleMania matches ever. Bianca Belair needed this match because it would make her a star. This is also the match that I discovered that Sasha Banks is the 3rd biggest star in the company, right behind Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. What makes this match even more iconic is that they main evented WrestleMania. 2 black women really main evented a WrestleMania. That is crazy. It's honestly a legendary and historical moment. And they didn't even main event for political reasons. No, they main evented because they put on the best match and were the biggest names that night. I love absolutely everything about this one. Number 4, Triple H versus Daniel Bryan. The main event of WrestleMania 30 saw Daniel Bryan win his triple threat match against Batista and Randy Orton. The scene of him holding both titles in the air with 75,000 fans chanting yes was a cool moment, but I thought his match with Triple H was even better in the beginning of the night. You see, the entire story revolved around the fact that Daniel Bryan and Triple H hated each other. The two started their feud at SummerSlam when Hunter hit him with a pedigree, costing him the WWE Championship. Triple H really went on for the next 6 months calling this man a bum that was not World Championship material, holding him back and screwing him in most of his matches. It was a beautiful underdog story that was perfectly expressed in the monster promo package. When a story is this good, you start to care about everything that's going to happen in the match. And it's even better when these two put on a wrestling clinic. I think these two had a lot of chemistry and put on a classic wrestling match that not too many people talk about for some reason, but I'm gonna make that change with this video. Number 3, Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle. You already know that this list was definitely going to include Mr. WrestleMania. Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle are 2 of the greatest in-ring performers of all time. And what do you think happens when you put a couple of the best wrestlers of all time in the ring together? They create something magical and special, and that's exactly what these two did at WrestleMania 21. Shawn Michaels was putting on classics every single week at the time, and on the other hand, Kurt Angle was just a straight up monster that nobody could stop. Not only is this one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time, it is just one of the best of all time, period. If you haven't watched it, you should do that immediately. Number 2, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. Mr. WrestleMania has one more spot on my list, and that is his match against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. The rematch was good and all, but it isn't nearly as good as the original bout these two had in 2009. Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker really came out to the ring that night and said, you know what, let's put on one of the best matches of all time, and they delivered. Similar to Hunter and Taker, these two were in a rivalry since 1997. Although I think their best match ever was the Hell in a Cell match in that year, I think this WrestleMania bout is a close second. And also, who could forget about the cameraman who almost died for this match? Like, come on, that man put his body on the line to entertain millions of people, and you gotta respect that. And number 1, we have Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. My favorite and what I think is the best WrestleMania match of all time is Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on Bret Hart from WrestleMania 13. It really does not get any better than this. Austin versus Hart is so good on a bunch of different levels. The story was there with these two having a feud for many months at this point, and they absolutely hated each other, and they made sure to make it look like that during the match. I love the idea of this match being a submission match because it really gave Bret Hart the advantage. There's something about 1997 Bret that was just crazy. Like, that's my favorite version of him. He was untouchable. Even that entire year altogether, the 1997 was a great year for the WWF. I'd even say that this match right here is a true beginning of the Attitude Era. The image of the blood pouring down on Austin's face while he was stuck in the sharpshooter couldn't have been any better. The booking of the double turn was also genius stuff. Ken Shamrock being the special guest referee just made it that much better, and I love the ending with him and Bret Hart where he's like, yo, get off of Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he hip tosses him. That was kind of crazy. This is literally a perfect match. It is Austin's best match ever, and you could say the same thing about Bret Hart. I really wish that he stayed with the WWF because I think the rematch would have slapped, but it is what it is. Anyways, that is it for the video, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. I'll see you all in the next video.